Hey, this is Andy Brown, and in this follow along, we're going to take a look at Amazon S3 Select, which is a way for us to query data within an S3 object. So let's make our way over to S3, as well as let's go and get to our AWS examples repo. I'm opening this up in Gitpod. You can use code spaces if you like, or whichever cloud developer environment you want. And while this is open, we'll go ahead and create a new folder here. We'll just say S3 Select. And I mean, there's a few ways we can do this. We can use the CLI, we can programmatically do it. I kind of want to do some coding because we haven't been doing much in here, and I'm going to use Ruby because it's my favorite language, and you should know the majority of languages, so we'll keep mixing them up here. But we'll go ahead and we'll just say select.rb, and I'm going to cd into that directory, so just make sure you're in there, S3, and we'll say S3 select. Okay, we'll type in clear. I'm going to just run bundle init to initialize a bundler. So now we have a gem file. And so we're going to want to specify something for this. So I'm not exactly sure what it would use for this. So AWS S3 select, SDK Ruby, and we'll take a look at what it needs here. And it looks like it's part of the S3 client. So I can go ahead and type in AWS S3, SDK S3. I think that's what it is. And if this is correct, we'll type in bundle install, and it should pull that gem, assuming I named it right. It looks like I did, so that is good. And so in our select.rb, we can get started here. So usually you want to have a client, so that is definitely the first thing that we're going to want. I'll go ahead and grab this documentation here. And we don't need to load credentials because it's going to get loaded in from the environment variables. If you are using your own local machine, you might have to change this configuration. This is picking up in nvars. I want this to be in, say, Central 1. Actually, it'll automatically default to that, so I don't really have to worry about it. There is one other thing we'll have to do is create a bucket to start working with. So I'm going to go ahead and type in readme.md, and we'll just put in some stuff in here. So the first thing is we'll need to create a bucket, and then we'll have to create a file with data in it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and type in AWS S3, make bucket S3, :// S3 select, fun, AB for my initials, and then a bunch of random values. We'll go ahead and paste that in down below. So we should get a bucket. There we go. And then what we'll need to do is copy a file into there. And it supports obviously different file formats. We're going to keep it really simple and maybe upload, trying to decide what we should use because we can use JSON or CSV. Let's use a CSV because that seems more like table-like data. And I'm just going to say data.csv. And so we're going to need some CSV data. So I'm going to go over to ChatGPT, generate out a CSV of data with headings. I want make it like some, we could say about, this is kind of hard. So say generate out a list of the top animes, the list of the top 20 animes. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll say make this tabular data, make this for a CSV. Have 6 different columns. And we'll go ahead and see if it can do that for us. There we go. We're getting some good information here. So I'll be back here when it finishes generating, okay? All right, it is done. And apparently, it looks like I can just download a file. I didn't know I could do that with ChatGPT, so that's kind of cool. What if we could make it for more data? We'll just stick with 20. We don't have to go crazy here. I'm getting a bit silly. And what I'm going to do is upload this file to S3 Select folder. And so here we can see we have information, so that is great. I wonder if we could preview this. There's probably some way to do that, but well, it is what it is, so that's fine. So we have that file there, and that file is called top 20 animes. And again, to make our lives easier, I'm just going to use an absolute link here. Sorry. We'll go ahead and copy this, and I'm just going to paste this in here, right there. And that way we can copy this to our bucket. So type in clear here. So now we have our file that we want to work with. So we'll go back over to our Ruby code. So we have our client. Again, Ruby, you can have parentheses. You don't have to have them around functions. I try to omit them where I can to reduce the amount of code I'm writing. And so somewhere in here, there should be like a way of selecting. So I'll go ahead and type that in there. This says select object content. That kind of sounds like the command here. The operation is not supported by directory buckets. That's totally fine. Can I get an example here to see what's going on here? So I'm going to look through this example. I think this is what it is because it says SQL, expression. Yeah. So this is what that is. Again, different SDKs might call them different things, but it's the select object content here. So we'll go ahead and copy part of this. So we need this here. Okay, and so there's some parameters we want. Definitely we're going to need the bucket. We're going to need the object. So those are two things we'll definitely need. In this case, our bucket is called this. I'm going to bring this over. Of course, you need to change it for your name, whatever you're calling yours. And then this is the name of the file. So we'll go ahead and bring that in. The next thing we're going to need is the expression type, which is SQL. There can only really be one type here because at least right now that's all there is. But I assume they did that because they're planning in the future for something else. Request progress, I'm not really worried about that. It's already set to false, so that's obviously not required. We do have to have an input and an output. So let's go ahead and copy this. I'm going to assume if we don't use a scan range, it'll select the entire file. So go ahead and paste this in here. We'll go back here for a second. And so, yeah, okay. So just take this one off here because Ruby usually doesn't like that when you do that, having like a trailing one. Some languages like that, other ones don't. So there's a lot of stuff going on here in the input serialization. We are using a CSV, so that's fine. We're going to get rid of JSON. We're going to get rid of Parquet because we're not using those. We're not using JSON here. Yeah, we're not using JSON here, so I'll take that out. And just what I want to point out, I've never used this before, but I'm very comfortable with SQL and writing code and this kind of stuff. And when you have all those disciplines, picking up these new things are like dead simple. So anyway, we have our expression SQL, we have our input serialization, file header info, use, ignore, or none. I guess if there was file header information, I guess that's useful. I'm not sure if it's talking about the headings in particular. Comments, quote escape characters. Okay, so this is probably a CLI command. So let's go ahead and take a look. AWS S3 API. Let's see if it has this get content. Select object content. Okay, great. And so it probably has very similar stuff. If we go over to our input serialization, it explains all these things here. So first line is not a header. Oh no, it is. It is a header. So we do want to use it. Use the first line as the header, which it is. Okay, good. A single character used to indicate that the row should be ignored. We'll leave it as the default here. We'll just take that out. And then let's see what we have. Record delimiter. A single character used to separate individual records in the input instead of the default value. Well, since this is a CSV, we're going to stick with the default. Field delimiter, a character used to separate the individual field records. So I imagine that one's like going to be a new line and one's going to be the other one. Quote character, we'll leave it as default again. Allow quoted record delimiters. I don't know, what does their data look like? I mean, we do have some in here. Specifies that CSV values may contain quoted record delimiters and such records should be allowed. So I'm not sure what it's trying to say there. And then here, quoted escape character, it's already doing that by default. So I want to stick with what the default is. So that seems fine. So then what we really have to specify is that. And that actually might also be the default as well. But we do have to have something in here. So I imagine that at the very least, we have to have that specified. Notice that these have this as a default. These ones aren't showing defaults. Record delimiter, a single character used to separate individual records instead of the default value. So it's suggesting that there is a default, but it's not telling us that. It should really indicate it there. I guess they just were not good about the documentation. We have no compression happening, so that is fine. Let's go take a look at the output. Indicates whether to use quotation marks around output fields. Sure, you can do that if you want. I don't care. The single character used for escaping, let's leave that alone. Same thing here. Ignore that, ignore that, ignore that. It seems like that's the only one we really need, so we'll just have that there. I'm going to take out these commas because that might mess things up. So very straightforward, a lot easier to look at. Now we need to actually write the expression, which is supposed to be right here. I'm going to write it as a here doc because I kind of prefer writing here docs. So in Ruby, a here doc looks like, I don't know. Here doc Ruby, I always have to look it up. It's where you can write a multi-line string. Perfect for queries, as you can see. Some languages use triple backticks, single quotations, single quotations. But we're going to write our expression there. And so I'm just going to write here query. And the next thing we want to do is write our query. So how do we do that? Well, we'll just look up the docs and go find out really quickly. S3 select. I can't imagine it's that hard. So we'll go here and go into this. And we'll go to examples. No, that's no use. We'll just go to the reference. I remember going in here, when you look in here, no examples. Again, what is going on? AWS used to have the best docs, and it looks like, again, a little bit lazy these days. The table name is always going to be S3 object. I remember looking that up there before. So there's going to be like a from statement. That's usually where we want to start with, from. So it says from table name. The table name here is just S3 object. So we'll say select from S3 object. In each form from the clause table name is the S3 object that is being queried using coming traditional relational characters, etc., etc. So again, I'm assuming that it's not the name of the file, it's just S3 object. If it isn't, I guess we'll find out here very shortly. We want to select very particular attributes. So we'll go here and make a tab and then look at our anime attributes. So we have rank and title and release. I kind of wish these were lowercase, but whatever, that's how they did it. Genre, IMDb, and we'll leave the other ones out here for just a moment. And so I'll go here and type in S3 object. Again, this might be called something else. I'm just going to name it like T so that we don't have to go crazy when renaming stuff here. That's how you set an alias. Usually you can just put T right after the end of it, but the syntax might be very sensitive. Oh, you can do either or. Okay. I'm not going to have the as. I like having it like that. And so that will select from that. I mean, we want all the data, so let's see if that works. We need to go back to, it was S3, Ruby, select, content. I want to get back to that example because, well, actually we don't really need that, I don't think. What I will do is I'll put a binding pry in here, so I'll just say require pry. And this allows us to put a breakpoint so we can inspect the response and see what the result is. We'll have to go to our gem file and add pry here, and then we'll do a bundle install down below. It is not being responsive here. There we go. Bundle install. And so now we should be able to run this script. Yeah, so I can't imagine in the query we need to have the name here because the key's here, so I imagine it's just that. But anyway, we'll try it. So we'll say bundle exec Ruby select.rb, and we'll see if it works. It doesn't know what this is, so we have to just require it. So we'll say require AWS SDK S3. And we'll go up. Ensure you've installed or added. Oh, they always want one of these. That's fine. Okay, gem. It's required by it's AWS SDK S3 is using this. Nokogiri is an XML parser. And so we just need to use one. It usually takes forever to install, but since it's probably already pre-installed, it went really fast. So it's saying there's an error with our code. Error parse select missing from. Okay. So I'm not sure if the issue is that this is a multi-line object and that's its problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a binding pry here and see if we can just kind of turn this back into a single file. So I'm going to type here and I'm just going to run this again. So notice binding pry stops us where we are, so we can now write the word query and see the result. And so notice that we have a bunch of new lines. So I want to replace this and make this a single line. Oh, the other thing that's messed up here is these don't have commas. Maybe that's our problem. Maybe the new lines is not our issue at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just type exit here and try this again. We'll comment this out so that it goes past this part. And it says, some headers in the query are missing from the file. Please check the file and try again. So suggesting that some of these might not actually be there. So we'll go back over here, rank, title, release. Oh, that's release year. Okay, so this is release year. The only challenge here is this is like that, so we'll have to put single quotations or double quotations around it. I always forget which one it is. Might be singles, might be doubles. We'll just flip between the two. I don't think it likes that, so we'll do doubles instead. I never remember which one, because one is for a string and one is for when you need to represent that has a space. Okay, so I don't like this one here, so I'm just going to take it out for now. We'll worry about it in a moment. We'll try this again. And then it says, some headers are missing in the query. What is missing now? Oh, IMDb rating is its own thing. So we'll clear this again, and we'll hit enter. Okay, great. So we got a response. Let's type in RESP, and we get back a structure with a payload. So we can do RSP, and I'll just try this payload. And apparently it is an event stream. Can I go to S, please? To S, body, content. I don't know what it's supposed to be, so we'll go take a look. AWS S3 Ruby SDK. And so we'll go to the client here. We'll go back down to that copy that we had earlier. So content, select content. And let's see what we need to do with it afterwards. There is a lot of code going on here. So we have like a select. I wish this was highlighted. I don't know why they didn't do that. But you can see here that we have our parameters. Oh, and then they actually have a stream here. Interesting. Geez, they write a lot of code for this. And we can see our response here. So we have a numerator here. That's not what I want. I just want the actual payload for the record events available. Is event.payload. Okay, so it looks like what we have to do is use it in a block. Because if we do that, then we have our stream, and then we can get our event information here. So I'm going to copy this block. Again, the reason why this is easy for me is I know Ruby really well, so I'm not spending too much time thinking about it here. But of course, if this is not your first language, you might find this a bit challenging if you're coming from Python or something else. So we have all this configuration here, and what we can do is just take it and move this out of here. Okay, we'll cut this out, paste this down below, and this will be our I don't know, attributes, parameters, whatever you want to call them, configuration basically. And so I'll paste that in there, and so now we can just pass it in here, And this will make it a lot easier when we're working with this block here. So we have to do stream. I mean, I don't work with streams a lot, but again, I'm going to be okay working with it. And so we want to cut this block out here and then put that there. I'm just going to put a comment here so I can see where the end of this is, so we're not getting confused. And it looks like we could use that as well. I think this one is superfluous, this one down here, so I'll take that out. Just to make sure I'm not mucking up any of my ends, I'm just going to do this for all of them. Stream on error event. Okay, and it said that there was other stuff that we can see. This is going to raise the error and tell us if there's a problem, it's just going to run into that. Here it's suggesting that we can get more error information out of it. I don't really care about that. Well, we'll leave it in just in case. But here it says the event type, but what we were looking for is the actual data. So if we come back over to here, I think it's suggested down below that we can get the payload from here, and then that gives us our input output. So let's try using that. And this binding pry here is going to be useless. So I'm actually going to put it here instead. Okay. And we'll save this and we'll exit down here below. Whoops. Exit with an exclamation mark. And we'll go ahead and run that again. So we have an error here. Unexpected end of input. Line 45. Oh, we have these 3 ellipses. They don't mean anything, so we got to take that out. We'll try this again. And so now it's captured the information here, and we have an event. So we'll type event and hit enter. We have event records. So there's different types of, I guess, event types. So if we go back over to here, we have record, stats, progress, continuing, and end. So there's all these different ones, and based on what happens here, we might care about something else. So we'll go ahead and just type event payload and see what we get. Can I just get the output? No. String IO, Ruby. Dot string. Okay, so that's what it's suggesting. Or IO put. So we'll say event payload. What does it say? Puts? How about dot string? String. Okay, there we go. So now we're starting to see data. And I mean, it's not the nicest looking, but it technically is correct. We'll go ahead and type in exit here and see if it does another event, because it's going to keep iterating through it. And so this one's the stats. So now we can go and say event. So we can see how much has been processed. That's interesting. We'll hit exit again. And in this case, it's erroring out because it can't print out the payload unless that's the type it is. So we'll go here and just say if puts, we'll make a case and we'll say event type. And then based on the event type, we can print out different kind of stuff. So say when, and we had records. When it is stats, it's something else. When it is end, it will have something else. I think we can figure out what all these are from here. Event stats, progress continued, end. So I mean, this one's kind of interesting. So we'll grab this, I suppose. And we'll paste that in here as such. And then we can just put these out. I'll have to say what it is. So bytes. So this one's scanned. This one is processed. This one is returned. Okay, so we get those 3 here. And then when we are in this case, we can go ahead and just say puts. And that will puts the that there. So that's fine. That string is not really useful to us. I would like a better format than that. But I guess it could just be outputting back in CSV. I mean, I would love JSON back if we can get that. I'm not sure if we can. And so now we can see we get our stats, and this is coming back for our records here. It's not showing us the order of our headings, but clearly it is getting us information in the way that we're asking for. I wouldn't mind dumping this to JSON if it's possible. Let's go take a look here. And okay, so I think we can actually choose how we want to output it. It doesn't have to be CSV. So let's go back over to our the CLI, AWS S3 CLI. I think it'd be easier to work with it if it is JSON, at least in this case. Go back here, version 2, AWS S3 API. We'll go down here, go all the way down to the bottom. We'll go back into content, or maybe it wasn't at the bottom. Yeah, it was. Okay. We'll look for output serialization. All right, and let's take a look at some other options. So instead of doing CSV, let's do JSON, because JSON's so much nicer. The value used to separate individual records. If no value is specified, Amazon S3 uses a new line. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back, and let's get rid of this. We'll just do this instead. And so this is suggesting that we can instead get back JSON. And I really would prefer JSON. So I think we got rid of our binding pry. Yep. So we'll just go ahead and try this again. And now we get back JSON, which is a much nicer format if we're programmatically working with it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is in a good format for us to work in, because this is literally just a string. Also, I'm noticing here that each thing here, each line does not have a comma on each line. It's just a new line. And I mean, that's okay, but it's not exactly how I would like it. I'm not sure if it's streaming each line here as well, because notice that we have all this stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do a sanity check and put this here. And I want to see if that appears in between all these lines. It doesn't, so that's perfect. Okay, so what I want to do here is then get this string, the results, and we'll go up here and say string results. And I'll just say null here, or nil. And then we'll just say string results. And then the idea is we have this string down here below. And so we can split it on new lines. So say split on the new line. And that will give us back an array. And then we can join it back together with a comma. So now it's back to a string. And so now it's formatted correctly. And then what we can do is, because, you know, again, it's going to, like, we want this to all be a string with an array around it. And so then the next thing we can do is then put around square braces like this, right? And do that. And then that should get us back an actual JSON shape that we actually want. So that's how our JSON should look. Let's go take a look and see if that works. So we'll go ahead and take a look here. It didn't like the split for nil class. So it's suggesting that this is nil. I'm going to put this above here. We'll try this again. This might have to do with it being working in an async way, which is kind of annoying. Sync string results. No, it's not set. You know why? There's a puts in front of it here. That's probably what's messing it up. We'll try this again. And I want to check string results. There we go. Okay, that's fine now. Now this one, it's all escaped. So are these all new lines? Yeah, they are. Okay, great. So we'll go back here. And we'll try our code here and see if this works. Let me just type exit here with an exclamation mark, clear. We'll go back and run it again. Now we'll type JSON. And this looks like how I want it to be, because it has a square brace in the front, a square brace in the back. This is important when we want to parse it with JSON. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to parse it right here. JSON.parse. We'll say JSON. And so now what we get back is a hash, which is very easy working with Ruby. It's kind of like a dictionary in, well, what do you call it? Python. Or JSON object in JavaScript. So go here and we'll just say JSON. And we'll go back down here below. And so we'll say JSON.parse, JSON, and now we have our data. And so now we can work with our data in a much easier way. And that's basically how you'd want to work with it programmatically. Now, I don't really want to do anything else other than inspect it and just puts it for now. Okay, so I'll go ahead and type exit, and then we'll just run this again. All right, and there might be a way to pretty print it. So pretty print hash in Ruby. It's either that or we convert it back to JSON. I think some people are suggesting that too. Well, there's the require PP, so let's see if we can do that. I think it's part of the standard library now, so we'll try this out. That stands for pretty print. Hopefully that works. That is not pretty. So this is another way we can do it. Now we'd be converting it right back to JSON, but that's totally fine. And we'll just say data here again. I mean, if we really wanted in JSON, we'd have to go through this whole rigmarole anyway. And we need to do a puts on this here, so I'll just do puts. Great, and so now we're getting our data in a nice format. So lots of stuff going on here, but let's go take a look at our query. So there's a few issues here that we're having. One is how we're going to deal with this space. So we'll go back to our select and we'll take a look here. The first form of the select is with the asterisk. Yeah, we could do that to get all of them. And so it's not telling us here what we can do when we're dealing with the space. You can refer to the nth space. You can refer to the nth space column. You can refer to n column. So I'm not seeing a thing here for an issue when we have, oh, here we go. So you can use double quotations to indicate the column headers, which are case, without double quotation marks, object headers are required, are case insensitive. Okay, but what about spaces? It doesn't say anything about spaces. But it does suggest that we can put doubles around it. So we did do that before. We can try that again. So I'm going to say T release year. And let's see if that works. So we'll just go ahead and fix this here. So that does fix our issue. Okay, great. So now we can go ahead and get the other one, which is T IMDb rating. Okay, we'll get that one as well. I hit enter. Oh, this one has to be an uppercase here because it's case sensitive, right? And we'll try this again. Good. If we want to change the names of these, we can say as rank, as year, as rating, as title, as genre. That's pretty standard SQL right there. We'll try this again. Hit up. I mean, we should be able to alias these. See, they have an as here. I'm just carefully looking at what it's complaining about. Expected identifier for alias at line 3. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm not sure what it doesn't like there. But what we can do is we just try 1 and then see what happens. I'm just taking those two out of there that are kind of problematic. So those ones are fine. What if I just try as year? I don't know if like that's a reserved word and that's why it's complaining. There we go. So I think maybe when we write the word year, it just might not like that because it's a reserved word. Okay, so then we just say release year. And this one could be as rating. All right, so that's a little bit nicer. We should probably just do a couple other things, like try to sort this in the other way. So we could say limit to 5, or maybe 4 records here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we just get 4. That's nice. The next thing we can do here is try where. And we could look at this and say where rating is greater than look at the ratings we have here. We have 9, 1, 9, 8.7. So maybe we'll say less than 8. Or maybe less than 8. And we'll see what we get for this. Will that work? Unknown token found. Try this again here. It might not allow us to use the alias down here, so we'll just try this IMDb rating like this. Will that work? No, it does not let us do that. Okay, let's go back and take a look. Where that has a Boolean result. Okay, so let's take a look at our operators. I mean, we have the less than sign, so that should technically work. I guess the other thought is that this is not necessarily a number. It could be represented as a string. It doesn't know what it is. Like, it doesn't know if it's a string or whatever. Maybe we can cast. So we have data types here. The general rule is to follow the cast function if it's defined. Okay, so probably what we need to do is cast this before we use them. We do have functions down here, so I'm going to go ahead and cast this value to an integer or a value. So we'll say cast, and it probably takes a parameter as the second one here. This one technically is a float, so we'll go ahead and say float. And I don't know what it wants, but we'll go ahead and try this. It doesn't like that still. I mean, we'll go back over to here. Let's go to the cast function and see how it works. As whatever. Okay, so we have to go here and say as float. We'll try this again. I just want to take out the where and see what happens if we do that. So we do get data back. It's complained less. Also notice, like, see how these are strings? This is now a float. It knows what that is. So we can also do this for our rank as well. So we can go here and say cast and say as int. And so that should return back that number. But again, I want to filter on that. So I'm going to try this again, say where. And I'm going to try rating again because I really don't want to have to write the other one there. I'll say under 8 and try that again. Still having issues. What if we just take out the T on this? Try that instead. No good, no good. Conditional functions. Yeah, we can use coalesce, case. So we do have quite a few interesting things here, but I'm still trying to figure out the where, which should be really easy to do, but it's giving us some trouble. Let's go down to our where again. Why does it not show us any examples of where? Like where is like one of the easiest things to do and they don't even show us an example. SQL reference. Let me fiddle around with this. I don't want to waste your time here. So I'm just going to go figure it out and come back, okay? All right, so I played around with it a bit, and so I tried this, and this works fine, but for whatever reason, I think like if we were to put in this operator, let's try this again. Well, it didn't error out, so that's good. What if we said, it was the other way around? So yeah, so for whatever reason, I don't know what I was doing before, but it just refused to work. But hey, at least we have a where that is working. It doesn't really matter what case we're using here. There's, of course, other functions. This is more about learning SQL and what you can do with it, as there are just a ton of different other functions. But I feel like this is more of an SQL discipline as opposed to learning so much about cloud. So I'm going to consider this to be done. So we'll go ahead and save this and say Ruby example for S3 select. And we'll go ahead and save that. And then let's just go and do some cleanup. So to clean up, we just need to remove the bucket. So we'll go ahead and do that. RB. And then, well, we got to get rid of the file first. So we'll go ahead and delete that first. Whoops. And this will be / top animes top 20 anime CSV. And we'll go back and hit up. And we are done here. See you in the next one. Ciao.